This attack really was a huge win for the Taliban. What's likely to be the longer-term impact of this attack?
Actually, it's what happened is very important. It will have a big impact on the situation as a whole and on the elections, I guess. We had a few more informations regarding what we had yesterday. We know, for example, that the gunman was part of the governor's elite bodyguard who entered this room, and in their official statement, the Taliban said that they explicitly were targeting General Abdul Razik and commander of the U.S. forces there, so General Miller. So the primary target was, of course, the police chief, General Abdul Razik. He's one of the most influential men, not only in Kandahar, but in the whole southern regions of Afghanistan. And they also killed the Kandahar provincial spy chief, Abdul Munaim, was also killed, and the governor was wounded, and Zalimai Wesa also was wounded, and Nabih Elham. So all officials of the Afghan state. And what's mostly important by the killing of General Abdul Razik, that he was Pashto himself. And he was the man of the U.S. In this area because he had real grievances against the Taliban, who the legend says killed members of his family. So he was one of the first Pashto to join the coalition with the United States against the Taliban. But he is also a very controversial person who was so the Taliban tried to kill him 29 times. They succeeded for the 30th time, but he was accused by Human Rights Watch of torture, and the UN committee, torture committee, asked for him to be prosecuted. So he was like a very important personality and someone reliable for the US administration, despite the fact that he was in conflict with the Afghani president.
And how is the Taliban's influence evolving? What about their control over territory, for example?
Their influence is increasing. Day by day, we saw them attacking towns like Kunduz, towns like Ghazni, and if we look at this map made by the Long-War Journal of the FDD, we see that all the red regions are contested regions with the Taliban, the gray ones are controlled by the Taliban, and the yellow ones are claimed to be controlled by the Taliban. And we see the situation on the map, which speaks for itself. So this, on the diplomatic level, has also a real impact, because despite President Trump saying that he's going to win the war, he also said more than a year ago that the policy of the U.S. will be more emphasized on the conditions on the ground rather on arbitrary timetables, which is very important in comparison with timetables that were given by President Obama and the former administration. And we saw, for example, the Taliban meeting the U.S. directly after the opening of a delegation in 2013 in Doha. So they met the American envoy directly, excluding the Afghani government, which didn't please at all the Afghan officials, because they were excluded, and because this was one of the conditions of the Taliban to accept to negotiate with the U.S. It's excluding the local government. And officials in Afghanistan today are very scared, because this is a loss of legitimacy regarding the street and regarding other political forces in Afghanistan. And so, knowing that also the Taliban have been building a parallel governance structure in the country since a while, and they do not recognize at all the political process. They do not recognize elections. They say that elections are illegitimate regarding the fact that they do not abide by Islamic rule, and so they are not at all in taking this option, as they were called, for example, by some American officials, to go to the ballots and we'll see if you win or not win, by General Mattis, for example. They're not at all in this configuration. What they want is that they want to win the whole thing, and what the U.S. is today negotiating is an honorable way out, because many U.S. officials and scholars are admitting today that this war that started in 2001, so mostly 17 years ago, is lost today by the U.S. And so the most important thing is to have a way out.